Hi everyone, so this is milestone 1 for Game Engine 2 GAM 575, and in milestone 1 we had to create a model converter. And the first step of creating a model converter is that we had to create a converter that took in an FBX model and a texture, preferably TGA file, and we had to convert it into a package that is packaged and then later called upon in our game engine, so it's more data driven. So right now I have a batch file that if you just run this, it'll execute all these FBX files and create the packages, but let's just take a look at it. So right here it calls the program model.exe. It takes in the FBX file, and a side note, the texture file has to be of the same name as the FBX model file. And then it creates a package file of your custom choosing name, and then it saves all that and saves all the output to a text file called spacestraight.txt, and it does this for all the other models, and it just waits. So if I run this really quick, you can start to see that it's creating these package files and these text files. And now I'll just continue. And now this text file is just mainly used for debugging. It's whatever the output is. You can see a lot of details about the vertices in the triangle list that is outputted, and also lets you know how many chunks are created and the size of each chunk. And the chunks are in this .spu file. And this file will be called in our game engine, which is right here. So in order to call the game engine, we first have to load the content. So here I'm creating the cameras, I'm adding them to a camera manager, and then I'm setting up the cameras. And our main focus, the camera that's going to be having the camera model, is going to be PCAM2, which is the X-axis camera. So after I set the active camera to like the overview camera, I create the custom models, and in my custom model class, it takes in the name of the file, which I will have to save it as write to data, and then I'll look for the package file, and then this is the file name that the scene graph will use. So it's going to be calling this game object as space frigate. So in my custom model class, right now I've set write data to file, so it's writing the data. But I could, actually I'll set this to 0 for now. So it's not writing the data to file. Let me just save this. So now it's, well no, actually, I'm sorry, I have to write this first. And then, but if this is a 0, then I'll just read the data from the .azul file, which I defined here. So going into this, I have a private method called privSpu, privReadSpu, that takes in the file name. So for example, space frigate and the chunk name, and then it reads in the verts, and I have a global array up here, which is defined when I'm writing to file for the triangle list and the vertices for the vert data. And so I create the buffer, and then I use the eat function that was defined in PA3 for the model converter, and I read that chunk, and then I save it into the array, and then I save it into the verts. And then this is just for my sanity, just to see if if they're both matching. And then I do the same thing for the triangle list. And then I do the same thing for the texture file. Now I'm not adding the texture here, I'm just creating the texture file in my source folder. Because then after I create the custom models, I set up the shaders, and these are the shaders that I'm going to be using, and then I add the texture. So this should be in the source file, and I create the textures and I add them to the texture manager, and then now I create the models. And let me just start this up. So while this is loading the symbols, I'm going to be having several different types of models, and some of them are going to be instance. Okay, here we go. So this is again just for my sanity, just to read it all in. And so this is the overview camera. Now you can switch through different cameras by pressing the keypad. The either 1, 2 will go to the X view camera, 3 will go to the Y camera, and then 4 will go to the Z camera. So from here, you can press G to go to cycle through the objects, and you can press T to switch their textures. And again, this is the default texture. And then I can activate the bounding sphere by pressing B and toggling on and off. Now, if it's in the camera frustum, which I have here, it's going to be green, and if it's not in the camera frustum, it's going to be red. So if I go to the next one, this was using a const color shader with light, it's red. And then if I go to the next one, this is the big wireframe with the const color, and I press B, it's going to be green because part of it, the bounding sphere, is within the camera frustum. I go to the next one. This one is green. It's inside. This is the bear model, the buggy, and then the space. No, this is the Astro Boy. Oh, space frigate. And this is another one. This is the wireframe with using the color shader. This is another one that's rotating. It's outside, and I kind of messed up. Let me go back and add all the bounding spheres on. Okay, so now we can kind of see the bounding spheres and which ones are activated and which ones aren't, and you can see from here. And I can change the position of the camera frustum model by moving PCAM to, or the X camera, and then it should update automatically, and you can see which ones are inside the frustum and which ones aren't. So hopefully that is enough for the milestone 1. Next steps are to add the animation system. So this is the model viewer, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching.